If you're eyeing potential upsets as we head down the stretch of the college football season and toward a possible playoff for a number of teams, put this one on your list. TCU hosting Baylor this week. Baylor, of course, just outside the AP top 10 and undefeated on the season, the only Big 12 team with that honor. We got Billy Wessels on the line from Purple Menace to set us up from the TCU side. Billy, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm getting my shoulder loose in case I need to play this weekend.
Yeah, I think you're at sixth string, right?
Yeah, I'm at the best. Sixth string, at the best.
Oh, man, I tell you. So before we dive into this matchup against the Bears and the rivalry, let's get caught up on TCU football at 4-4, because after the Oklahoma-Texas being the consensus pick for a Big 12 championship game, if anybody was looking for a team outside those two, I certainly was on the TCU bandwagon. Iowa State, Oklahoma State were there as well, but it just hasn't worked out too well for the Horned Frogs.
No, it's been a rough start. It's been a really weird year. As I was saying before we got started, it's been just a weird year. Oklahoma State last week, and they go to Oklahoma State. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. It sure seemed like a lot of calls. I got some home cooking Oklahoma State's way, but then Chuba Hubbard had a 92-yard touchdown and a 60-yard touchdown in the second half to pull away late. And TCU lost the game by a touchdown despite turning the ball over 4 times. Like I said, a lot of home cooking in that one. The week before, Texas comes to fourth, and TCU pretty well handled it, winning by 10 points. Took care of that rivalry game. 2 games before that, went to Kansas State and lost what felt like a really ugly game. They lost by a touchdown and played it terrible in that one as well. But then Kansas State goes and beats Oklahoma the next week. So maybe that loss isn't atrocious. And Iowa State just played it straight up, outplayed them. So that's kind of where we're sitting right now here in the Big 12. As they're trying to find 2 more wins to get bowl eligible. It's going to be a tough test this weekend with Baylor coming to town.
Yeah, so before we dive into the matchup against the current Bears, what marks this rivalry, Billy? Every rivalry has its unique qualities. What comes to mind when you think TCU Baylor?
The first thing has got to be 2014, right? If you're a college football fan, if you're a TCU fan, the 61-58 game where TCU had a 20-point lead there in the fourth quarter and let it slip away, and that kept them out of the initial playoff despite being ranked number 3, winning by 52 points and dropping to 6 unceremoniously, because that's how it always works. Yeah, but you think to that moment, but every year since then, 15, 16, 17, 18, TCU's won all 4 games and pretty well dominated. The last 4 games Baylor's won in this series. TCU's gone 8-4 the last 12 games. The 4 wins by Baylor's been by a combined 9 points. The 8 wins by TCU's been close to 100 points. So TCU, when they win, they blow them out. When they play Baylor, Baylor ends up winning. It's a close game. This one feels like it could be a slop fest. If you go back to 2015, if I don't know if you were paying attention that year, that night, or when I think it was either Black Friday. I think it was Black Friday when it was like storming down, pouring down rain, an ugly game. I think we're tuning in for another ugly game this weekend. Whether or not the weather plays a factor in it or not. It could rain. It's been raining all day today. We're still like 4 days away, but looks at the weather. There's a chance of rain on Saturday. But TCU's going to be trotting up there. They're at best 4th string quarterback for at least part of this game, I imagine. It's going to be a wild one, I think.
There are going to be more oddities and surprises in store in this college football season. So as people prepare for possible upsets and scenarios, we tend to gravitate to the chalk because it's difficult to find those outliers. But in this college football season, there have been over 10, 20-plus point underdogs win football games outright, and many of those against really good teams, like a Georgia losing to South Carolina as a 24-point favorite. So this one's not inconceivable, but there's a big barrier in line for TCU at home, and that would be at the quarterback position. So get us set for what we can possibly know or what you've gathered about one. Is it Matthew Downing?
Well, yeah, let me just take you to the depth chart because I'm convinced.
Please.
I'm convinced Max Duggan will play, and I think he'll start. Now he hurt his throwing hand, specifically the middle finger of his throwing hand, in the waning minutes of the Oklahoma State loss. He leaves the game. Checking into the game was Alex Delton, the grad transfer from Kansas State. They decided they didn't want Delton in the game in the situation, down 7 with 2 minutes to go. I think they were down 10 with like 3 minutes to go at this point. They got a field goal to try an onside kick, and they didn't get it. So Delton trots out there. They pull Delton back. They put out Michael Collins. Michael Collins is the transfer from Penn, who lost to Kansas last year, started a handful of games last year for TCU. But he's looked okay. He looked fine. So Collins comes in, last play of the game, takes a helmet-to-helmet hit, no call. I'm going to keep ragging on these Oklahoma State officials. They did a terrible job in this game. Collins takes a helmet-to-helmet hit on the last offensive play of the game for TCU on a sack. Again, the flag isn't thrown, but more importantly, Collins struggles to get up. They get Collins off the field. Collins not expected to play this weekend with a combo. I'm hearing internal injuries as well, not just a head injury. So Collins is beat up, so he's out. So Duggan has a hand injury, still likely to play, still very well in it. Third string, Justin Rogers was the redshirt freshman, highly touted from Louisiana, but his first game of his senior year of high school suffered a catastrophic knee injury. He's still been battling back. TCU wasn't going to play him. He wasn't fully healthy. He played in the bowl game last year, the glorious Cheez Bowl, but he decides last week he's going to transfer. He's up and going. He's in the portals somewhere, wherever that puts you. Fourth string, so Alex Delton, the grad transfer from Kansas State. They put him in the game for half a second, pull him right back out of the game. He decides, you know what, I've had enough of this. I quit and quit the team officially today. So he is no longer with the team. So you're looking at now the fifth string, Matthew Downing, walk-on transfer from Georgia. He was Georgia's third string last year behind Fromm and Fields. His older brother, Michael Downing, played for TCU in, I want to say 12 to 15 or 13 to 16. He was on those Alamo Bowl teams that had great comebacks. He forced the big fumble against Oregon on a kickoff that kind of started that rally. So he was a safety slash special teams guy. So his older brother is a grad assistant here, but was a safety here. So Matthew Downing is now your fifth string and now suddenly backup quarterback for this weekend's game. If Duggan can't go, if his hand injury is more severe than we expect, Downing's your guy, and he's been playing nothing but scout team and playing some scout safety like his brother did. So it's been it's a tumultuous time as far as in the backfield for TCU right now.
Where was Hard Knocks? They should have been available to chronicle all of this.
The last 6 days they should have been here for sure.
Man. All right, so Billy getting us caught up on TCU football at 4-4, taking on a Baylor team that's undefeated, the only one in the Big 12. So as you scan the rest of the offense and the defense, again, to get us caught up, whether it's something that's been a good point or a down point, disappointment, what are the outliers this season in regards to what is going to frame the narrative at least through 8 games?
Well, what they've done a better job last couple weeks was getting Jalen Reagor more involved. Again, he's a first-round talent in NFL drafts. I saw him mocked as high as 9th overall in this year's draft. He's an incredible talent, wide receiver. The issue is the first 4 or 5 games they couldn't get him the ball. He made 2 spectacular leaping catches, diving, full extension grabs against Oklahoma State to prove why he's got the potential of being a game breaker and a top 10 pick, top 20 pick in the NFL draft this year. They've done a better job the last couple weeks getting him out there because they've got a healthy Tay Barber, healthy number 2 wide receiver. So we'll see how effective those receivers are in this game if you're trotting out a true freshman with a busted hand or a walk-on fifth string who's never played a competitive snap. He played some snaps and blowouts with Georgia last year, but that was it. So we'll see how big of a factor those guys are. The offensive line's a little bit banged up. I don't know if you heard this, though. Starting right tackle Lucas Niang, also considered a first or second round draft pick. He up and quit, or not quit, quit's wrong term. He decided to get a surgery to prepare for the NFL draft last week. So he forego the rest of the season to go get ready for the NFL draft. So starting right tackle's gone. He's a guy that, like I said, will be a first or second round draft pick. So you're kind of filling in the holes there. The quote-unquote good thing about that is they kind of saw this coming. They played some more guys at right tackle. So Austin Myers is traditionally was a left tackle coming out of high school. He's shifted to right tackle and done an okay job there. Running backs, Darius Anderson and Shawol Olonolu are awfully impressive. It's a matter of finding consistency with them. Darius will get you 12 carries in the first half. Then he'll disappear in the second half. Shawol will be around for like a carry here and there, and they'll run it 7 straight times. So it's about getting consistency with this offense and a regular flow. And they can't do that if they don't have a steady quarterback, which they haven't had all year. It's just a cluster right now here in Fort Worth.
I would throw Matt Rule into the same category as Gary Patterson as a coach who seems to do more with less, seems to be on top of his game, lightly regarded from a national scale in regards to the short list of elite coaches, but maybe should be mentioned from the time. Gary Patterson, I named as the best coach in the Big 12 this past off season, and I think Matt Rule's doing an exceptional job. I don't think that's great analysis on my part at Baylor in regards to what he's taken over and what he's done with that program. When you look at the Baylor Bears, of course, we know about Charlie Brewer. We know they're coming off a game on a Thursday or Friday night against West Virginia, in which they only beat the Mountaineers by a field goal at home, and that's what spurs me on to this upset possibility talk. Have you had much chance to check out the Baylor Bears?
Yeah, it's kind of fun watching these guys that, for being with rivals, have covered recruiting so long. So I've seen all these guys play in high school because they're usually down to TCU, Baylor, Texas, or whatever is their final three. So guys that go to Baylor, they're not too far off the radar. And you mentioned Matt Rule being regarded. I mean, he interviewed, I think, for the Jets job this offseason and the Colts job like 2 years ago. So he's his name's getting up there, and we're kind of like, hey, Florida State, come look at Matt Rule, get him out of the Big 12. So we're all about getting him being more successful and getting him out of the Big 12. Yeah, but they've got talent kind of all over the field. But when you watch Baylor and they're 8-0, but they've been unimpressive in all but like 2 of those games. They even beat Rice by only a touchdown. So they haven't looked great yet. Charlie Brewer's been fine. He's been above average, and I would die to have someone like him at quarterback right now with TCU situation at the moment. But they look like a team that is just skating by, and they have the next 3 weeks. They have TCU, Texas, and Oklahoma. So this is kind of the hard part of their schedule. And again, they should have lost to Texas Tech. The Big 12 came out and said they messed up that game. Again, West Virginia didn't look great in that game. West Virginia's not very good this year at all. And that was coming off a bye. So they get a couple extra days to prepare. They're more well-rounded than TCU is right now. But it's a rivalry game. It's a rivalry game. Anything weird and crazy can and will happen. And Baylor, maybe their luck has run out after all these close calls so far this year. Maybe TCU can pull it out. I think Baylor's a 2-point favorite right now. That might have changed now with all the quarterback news that came out today. But I think TCU still has a shot in this one because they're just as talented everywhere. But the quarterback's the most important position on the field. And if Duggan isn't fully go, it'll be a tough time for TCU. But again, last year down in Waco, that was a game that was kind of sparked by 2 plays by Jalen Reagor. He caught a bubble screen and took it 80 yards, zigzagging across the field, and also took a direct snap and took it 40 yards for a touchdown. So he can be a game breaker here, and don't be surprised if you see him in all ways and shapes to try and get this rivalry win, and also to ruin Baylor's perfect season, also try and get closer to bowl eligible. A lot of stuff riding on this game.
Charlie Brewer completing 68% of his passes, 14 touchdowns and 3 picks. He throws it mostly to Denzel Mims, who's caught 38, and also Tycon Thornton, LaMichael Hasty, one of their best running backs, along with John Lovett out of the backfield, and John Lynch. Mr. Lynch has 8.5 sacks on a defense to lead the charge behind the line of scrimmage. TCU and Baylor should be a good one. From the, what do we say, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex? What do we call that down there?
Amon G. Carter Stadium, Fort Worth, Texas.
There it is. All right, Billy, we appreciate you stopping by. Please join Billy on Purple Menace as he breaks down TCU football and the rest of the staff there at Purple Menace on Rivals. We appreciate it, Billy.
Not a problem anytime, my man.